So let's check in on our Ukrainian friends who, as predicted from the beginning of this war by your two favorite JOOs, are running out of men. Ukraine urgently needs soldiers, but some men are desperate not to fight. The ones who aren't Nazis. Which they have a shortage of, apparently. Ukraine urgently needs new soldiers, but some, left uneasy by brutal fighting and intensifying conscription efforts, are desperately trying to avoid being called up. Quote, when you see people in uniform, you panic. You start thinking someone will mobilize you now against your will, a lawyer based in Kiev told NBC News. He did not want his identity known, fearful, like a growing number of men across the country, of being drafted into the army if his name is made public, just as Russia launches a wave of attacks to try to decisively seize the battlefield initiative. The 25-year-old has no military experience and just became eligible to be conscripted after Ukraine lowered the age men can be drafted from 27 to 25 last month. I love my country, he said in a phone interview earlier this month. I donate to the Ukrainian army, but unfortunately I am not very prepared to fight on the front lines because I don't have the experience, and I am probably not morally prepared to kill somebody, even if it's someone Russian. Facing a third year of assaults from its vast neighbor, Ukraine is running out of men. While volunteers lined up to fight at the beginning of the war, that fervor has waned and manpower shortages are now an issue that could seal Ukraine's fate even if it can retain Western support. So it has taken a series of steps that include passing a new mobilization law, increasing fines for draft dodging, and withholding consular services from Ukrainian men abroad who lack up-to-date military documents, measures that some soldiers on the front lines told NBC News they wholeheartedly support. The mobilization law came into effect earlier this month in a bid to boost Ukraine's depleted ranks, but it also has some men on edge. Quote, the mobilization itself is not even that scary. It's more the process of being mobilized, the Kiev lawyer said. You worry that someone will throw you into the bus one day, take you somewhere, turn off your phone, and you will be cut off from the world. His fear is exacerbated by videos on Ukrainian social media showing altercations between civilian men and recruitment officers on city streets and in public spaces across the country. So there are quite a few of these around. This is just one that we found of people being pepper sprayed on the bus. This video was taken by a woman who you can hear in the background. Which one is that?
I think it's this one.
Що ви робите? Я маю право знімати. Що ви робите? Це не воєнний об'єкт. Що ви робите, блядь? Подивися. Просто. Що ви робите? Слушай, знаєш що? Ти будеш до своєї жінки так говорити. Подивися. Ви зовсім чи що? Залили маршрутку перцовим балончиком. Вот. Оцей самий чоловік, я вже його бачила не один раз.
Yeah, so they literally just grabbed this guy and dragged him off a bus. And there are a lot of videos like this on social media.
It just shows how like all these nice liberals, you know, because like, look, the Nikki Haley supporters that I interviewed, and we showed a little bit of that yesterday, they're all very nice people. Like they kind of have this innocent naivete about them. Like, and there was the guy there supporting Ukraine. Like, the media just paints a picture of this as if it's a good thing to do. You're a good person if you support Ukraine against Russia, completely obscuring the horrors of war, especially the horrors of this war. That's what you're actually supporting when you send money to Ukraine. You're actually supporting Ukrainian men being dragged off the street and thrown to the front line of a meat grinder where in Bakhmut, where the heavy fighting took place for a very long time, I think the average lifespan on the front line was 14 minutes. So that's what you're actually supporting when you're supporting this.
Yeah, and you have videos we can't even show on the East Berlin side of dead bodies in the trenches of people who got grabbed off the street like this and just sent out to the front lines to fight in this war. Now, they can't really maintain this ruse. But even as people who were informed knew that this war was turning against Ukraine, if you talk to a lib, oh yeah, Putin got a lot more than he bargained for.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because that's what their fucking media tells them. Oh, Putin's. Oh, their economy is screwed. Oh, the ruble is crashing. The ruble crashed for a couple of weeks and came back stronger than it was before.
Yep.
So yeah, they're just completely propagandized. I've never in my life, I've never seen a war that the media didn't pump up in its initial phases.
Right.
They turned on Iraq later on, much later on,
Yes.
much later than they should have, but they always cheerlead war.
Yep.
Men ages 18 to 60 are currently barred from leaving the country. Andrei Domchenko, a spokesman for Ukraine's border service, said last month that 30 people have died since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, trying to cross Ukraine's western borders by traversing dangerous rivers like the Tisa separating Romania and Ukraine and mountains. The efforts are often arranged by unscrupulous traffickers who are paid thousands of dollars for the crossings, the border service has said in other statements. Demchenko separately told NBC News that draft dodgers also try to cross illegally at regular checkpoints by using forged documents, trying to bribe border officers, or even hiding inside vehicles as stowaways. So this is from Hotspot. Ukrainian border guards stopped 16 military-age men from escaping the country. They tried to get to Hungary and paid a total of $111,000 for it.
Wow.
And there are a lot of videos like this.
Yep.
Up on X.
This is the border stop. This has music in it, so we're not going to play it. But yeah.
Yeah, there are videos of them catching people trying to cross the rivers. There are videos of that people took who were escaping, of themselves escaping. Some of them make it, some of them don't. So yeah, I mean this you're not going to see on Morning Joe. They're not going to show you the Ukrainian men trying to escape.
Well, this is the tail end. You know, at the start of the war, the narrative was that, no, the Ukrainians are a proud people. They want to fight. And that's true to a large extent. But
Sure.
the people who wanted to fight have already been to the front lines. At this point,
They're
whoever
already
you're grabbing, they're already there. Whoever you're grabbing, they're the ones who don't want to fight. They're the ones who just want to live their goddamn lives.
Right. It's not like they didn't hear about the war and they just neglected to sign up. Right.
Exactly.
Ukraine has been conducting a rolling mobilization to boost its ranks since Russia invaded in February 2022. But the new mobilization law that came into effect earlier this month will mean that all men of military age have to report to draft offices to verify their credentials within 60 days. The apparent goal is to give the Ukrainian government a fuller picture of who can be called up. Men will also have to carry their military registration documents with them at all times. Women are currently not being mobilized, but some have volunteered to join the fight. Those who don't comply will face penalties, including restrictions on driving a car. The law underwent many amendments as lawmakers dragged their feet for months trying to pass an unpopular measure. Separately, President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a law earlier this month increasing fines for violating mobilization rules, while another now allows some prisoners to sign voluntary contracts with the army, an echo of a controversial practice employed by the Kremlin. That's not now. Gray Zone had a great article about this very early in the war, where they were releasing rapists and fans of the playground to go serve their sentence by fighting in the front line. But it's not just the draft-eligible men inside the country whom the Ukrainian government is trying to track down. A software developer from Kiev told NBC News he left Ukraine for Portugal this spring before the new mobilization law was adopted. The 35-year-old did not want his identity revealed for fear of possible repercussions and would not say whether he left Ukraine legally. He said he left because he was worried about being mobilized, especially after hearing stories of other men being corralled by recruitment officers on the streets, which he said doesn't foster a desire to go defend the country. That's the understatement of the year. In December, Zelensky said the military had asked to call up 500,000 more men. Ukraine faces an opponent, and by the way, I saw this in another article. The entire generation that would be between 25 and 65, I think, is less than 500,000 men. The ones that are left. Ukraine faces an opponent that can call on far deeper reserves.
Oh, you don't say. Citation for that, check a fucking map. You know?
check the population count on Wikipedia. Yeah. Russia mobilized 300,000 men in addition to its regular armed forces in the fall of 2022 and has been conducting a rolling recruitment of contractors that has signed up more than 100,000 more men since the beginning of this year alone, according to its defense ministry. Okay, so even if you get this Western aid to them, you need people to handle the guns until we order some of those Chinese robot dogs.
Yeah.
So who's handling these weapons that the West is sending?
If Russia can outman them, what, you're going to impose this reality, you know, facing the kinds of penalties, not being able to drive a car, not being able to leave the country, not being able to get your passport renewed. I love how that article floated. They haven't called up on women yet. What does that mean?
Yet.
Yeah, they haven't called on women yet. Is that what they're going to do? They're going to start throwing women to the front lines? Like, at what point do they come to their senses? And we covered on the last show, we'll drop the clip to that probably today, about Zelensky trying to broker a so-called peace conference where the Russians are not invited, right? Like at what point does this stop? Yeah. It's just a horrible human tragedy.
Please clap.